Here's a question that one could ask based on this explanation here. Try to ignore the fact that that's moving out to the right. I can't stop it. Imagine that, we're talking about historically the Republican Party being here in the middle with the Democratic Party. By the way, there was a period of time where if I had drawn this thing up for a class, say, 30 years ago, I might have made the Democratic Party move out this way. During the 1960s and the 1970s, it was pretty clear that the very progressive wing of the Democratic Party was pulling the Democratic Party to the left of the mainstream of American politics. You know what changed that for the Democratic Party? The reason that most political scientists would tell you that the Democratic Party is today, we'll see what happens with the Bernie Sanders and the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortezes of the world, whether they pull the Democratic Party to the left in the fashion that they seem to want to, or whether the Democratic Party will stay planted in the middle, as Nancy Pelosi suggests the Democratic Party needs to stay in the middle. Okay? We'll see what happens. Okay, but what happened if the Democratic Party was at least somewhat out here in the 1960s and the 1970s, and it moved back here, certainly in the 1980s, but certainly by the 1990s. Well, remember the authors of your textbook tell you that Bill Clinton ran as a new Democrat? And what did that mean when Bill Clinton called himself a new Democrat? He was going to it was his intention to bring the Democratic Party back to the middle. That the reason the Democrats were losing elections in Bill Clinton's mind was because they had drifted outside of the middle of the spectrum, the middle of the continuum. And the Democratic Party needed to get back there. It's all based on a model that economists developed many, many years ago called the median voter model, which suggests that most voters in the United States are neither strongly liberal or strongly conservative. And so if you want to win elections, the way that you win elections is by getting more votes than your opponent. You have to appeal to where the votes are. They're here.
Somehow the majority of the population just starts to shift like how we're like.
Well, what do you mean? What would happen?
Well,
Yes, we just have to cope with it.
That flow. Do you think the whole country just goes?
To me, it would be a lamentable thing. Okay, I've always thought that one of the great strengths of our political system, the stability of our political system, has been based on the fact that political leadership has, to a large extent, appealed to the middle. Median voter, the middle ground, and then therefore the willingness to compromise. See, what happens when you start talking about people who are appealing to voters out here is they become less amenable to compromise. And it's like compromise has become, to a large extent, a dirty word in American politics. So like the last thing voters, certainly left-leaning voters and right-leaning voters seem to want is, why would we want a politician to compromise? We want them to stand on principle. We want to say, well, that's a formula for gridlock. That's a formula for getting nothing accomplished. That's a formula for pushing things down the road and not dealing with things until they become crises. Now you have crisis politics. You have a crisis on the border, or you have wherever the crisis is, right? It's a formula for making governance very difficult. And that has been something. It's not all something. I'm certainly not going to be someone who's going to lay all at the feet of Donald Trump. But all of that was happening before Donald Trump burst onto the scene. What Donald Trump seems to have done is taken advantage of that for electoral purposes. That he saw that and took advantage of it. And sort of plays to that. That's kind of his strength. Is playing to that,
So do you think in this last election, the people probably swing that way, but the mobilization public was radical sides? That's why
well, just to sort of continue with this median voter model, it's really an economics model. Economists developed this model. What they essentially have argued over the years is that if we take presidential elections, for example, during the primaries, okay, what you would see would be like the Democratic candidate, trying to appeal to the base, the liberal base of the Democratic Party, the activists, and the Republican candidate out here trying to appeal to the conservative base of the Republican Party. They're taking positions on issues that will help them get the nomination, because that's, in the primaries, that's kind of what you have to do. But as you move to the general election, the candidates had a tendency to move to the median voter, because as I say, in the general election, that's where the votes are. Independent voters and weak party identifiers are very important, or much more important in the general election than they are in the primaries. Right? So that had pretty much happened for many, many, many election cycles. For example, Mitt Romney, we won't use, in 2012, we won't use Barack Obama because he was already the incumbent, and he didn't really have to wage a campaign. He didn't have a serious challenger in the Democratic Party primaries in 2012. But if you look at Mitt Romney, that is the best explanation for I can tell you what happened to Mitt Romney's campaign in 2012. He started out here trying to appeal to conservative voters, but once he had the Republican Party's nomination locked up, you can go back and look at news reports. I mean, I'm not really making this up, right? Like, he tended to modify his positions on the, sort of soften his positions on the issues, became more moderate, because I think Mitt Romney recognized that's where more votes were, right? The difference, what happened in 2016, is I think that Donald Trump never did that. I think Donald Trump stayed out, has continued to stay out there. And whether that will work, if it worked for him in 2016, whether it'll work for him in 2012, I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.